I didn't know whether to make this video or not because I was concerned that people might use this information to avoid detection if they wanted to live in a unit. But I realized that people make mistakes. They get lazy and they slip up. So they can probably try to avoid getting caught, but eventually they'll do something where they'll send up a red flag and someone will notice that they're living in their unit. So I'm just going to continue on with this video. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be discussing self-storage, but don't click off just yet because I'm not going to give you 10 things to look out for when renting a storage unit. I'm not going to compare one company against another, and I'm not going to give you a rundown on what you should and shouldn't store. This video is about other videos that I've seen online. Other videos where people say, I'm living stealth in a storage unit. I don't think they're living stealth. I think what's happening is either they're lying and the whole thing's a setup, or there's something going on in the front office that shouldn't be going on if they're still back there living in that unit. It's nearly impossible for anybody to live stealth when they're living in a unit, in a self-storage unit inside of a building. And I'll tell you why. Staff, if they're doing their job correctly, will walk through those floors at least once a day. And why, might you ask? Does somebody have to walk through the facility once a day? I'll tell you why. It's pure safety. That's the number one goal, is safety. So when you walk that floor once a day, it's to make sure that it's safe for people to visit. You have to make sure there are no obstructions on the floor. Make sure there's no glass or liquids on the floor. Make sure any burnt out light bulbs are replaced. Make sure that every single lock on every single unit is locked up tight and that all the latches are engaged. You have to make sure that anybody who has not paid for their unit and is delinquent is locked out of their unit until they make their payment, and that anybody who's made a payment on a delinquent unit, you have to make sure that that lock comes off so that they can gain access to it. You have to make sure that the fire extinguishers are in place and undamaged. There's a whole host of things to look for on a daily walkthrough through the floor. So there's no possible way that after going through all that you're going to miss somebody living in their unit. You're going to see an extension cord. You're going to see other signs that somebody is living in there. You walk through that floor day in and day out, you're going to find those little things that people don't think you're going to notice. You're going to notice it. It's like being a banker, being a teller at a bank. You work with money all day. If you get handed a counterfeit money, the very first thing you're going to do is feel that. You're going to feel it and know that there's something wrong. Then you're going to inspect it. Well, that's just the same when you're walking through a facility. You walk through it day in and day out, you're going to notice the little things that just throw you off, the little thing that just catches your eye. That one small thing that nobody thinks you're going to notice raises a red flag. Now, you may not see it the first day or the second day, but you're going to see it before the end of the week. So there's no way that these people online claiming that they're living stealth are actually living stealth unless management and the employees are not doing their jobs. They're either not walking through those facilities or they're turning a blind eye. So who are the worst perpetrators? Who are the ones who are most likely to live in their unit? Those people who have 24-hour access. That's right. It's the ones that pay the big bucks. The ones that pay the extra fee in order to live there. That's right. You got to pay that little extra fee if you want 24-hour access. But it's a small price to pay if you can manage to live in there without being detected, which I don't think you can. Having 24-hour access means that you have access to the building after everyone's gone home for the night. That's okay because you come through the door, you use your card, you come through the door, the security system picks you up. There might be a call to the general manager, but if they see you've used your swipe card before you've come in the building, you're just a customer coming in, accessing your unit after hours as far as they're concerned. And to tell you the truth, management probably isn't going to check the log on who swiped in and swiped out the night before, unless there was an incident the night before. It's one of those little nuisance jobs, one of those little things that they really push aside every day and don't even bother with. You know what else makes me suspicious? People who arrive during the day and they're in their units with their door closed. What's up with that? When I came across one of those, they got a on their door. Of course, I couldn't go in. Sometimes I woke them up, but I'd wait for a response, knock again if I had to. If there was no answer after the second time, then we were allowed to raise the door because they could have always walked away and left without locking up their unit. But more often than not, when I knocked on the door, there was an answer from the other side. Yes? Oh, just checking. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Oh, everything's fine. Okay, there was no lock on the unit. I just wanted to make sure, you didn't leave without locking up. No, everything's okay. All right, later. Nothing I could do about it. If they were in there sleeping, all they had to do was lay back down and go back to sleep. And that was it. Cleanliness of the restroom is another issue. As I said, I was a custodian, and so it was my job to go into the restrooms every day, once or more than once, depending on what needed to be done, to take care of the cleanliness of the restrooms. So there were times when I walked in there and I saw whiskers in the sink, so I knew somebody was shaving. And finding it once, not too much of a red flag, but you've got that thought in the back of your head, I've got to keep an eye on this. If you come in 2, 3, 4 days during the week and you find the same colored whiskers in the sink, you know something's up. You know somebody's probably living there. If you go into the restroom and you see water on the floor around the sink, you know somebody's probably living there because they're taking sponge baths in front of the sink and they're not cleaning up after themselves. Another tip is the wastebasket. If you open up the waste bin and you find razors, feminine hygiene products, say an old deodorant, an empty toothpaste tube, you know somebody's probably living there. It's all their own personal items that they're using in the restroom, and when they're of no use anymore, instead of putting them in a bag, taking it to their storage unit and disposing it somewhere else, they get lazy and they start disposing of it right where they are. Supplies. Toilet paper, paper towel, liquid soap from the liquid soap dispenser. If all of a sudden that stuff, you're running out of those supplies quicker than normal, then you probably have somebody living there because they're using your bathroom. So of course they're using your toilet paper, they're using your soap, and they're using your paper towel. Customer arrives in one set of clothes and then all of a sudden they've changed and you see them in a completely new outfit. Now that might not be a red flag. That's something to keep in the back of your head. If you see it too often, then you know something's going on. But I'm talking about people who come in and have a complete change of clothing. And once is fine, twice is fine maybe, but more than that, something's going on. They're not just coming in and just changing clothes. The only other thing that would explain that away is if somebody were to be homeless. They have all their belongings in that storage unit, and they do need to come and change their clothes every day. That's one thing. If they're there, they change their clothes, and they're gone, that's good. That's okay. But if they're hanging out at their unit and they've changed their clothes, then hanging out at the unit is another red flag that's on this list. If hanging around in the unit has to also do with arranging furniture in their unit. Now, if you've got a couch that's on the floor and there's absolutely nothing on it, you know they're probably sleeping on that couch. I came across a unit, and it's not only me, but people I've worked with have come across units where there are mattresses on the floor or beds completely set up. People have been caught sleeping in them. So if you see a bed that's set up, you see a couch that's on the floor like that, you see a what do you call them? Inflatable mattress leaning up against the wall, and there's a space on the floor to put it, you know that they're living there. Let me give you an example. There was at the first storage facility I worked at, I suspected that somebody was living in a unit in a 5 by 10, 5 by 15, I think it was 5 by 15, and I suspected they were living in there. And I took a ladder, and this is something that this is why there's no excuse for people living in units. I took a ladder, I brought the ladder over to the unit, I climbed up the ladder, and I peered through the top of the unit. They had a clothesline set up. They had their medication. There's a bar that goes along the corrugated metal wall to keep the walls upright and sturdy. They had their medication and their little health and beauty aids and stuff all stacked on that. They had an end table set up where with all their personal belongings on it. They had a space marked off on the floor, not marked off on the floor, but they had space on the floor, and they had their inflatable mattress leaning up against the wall. And the space on the floor was just big enough to just push that mattress down on the floor and then go to sleep. I told my general manager about it. He told me that he had walked through and not seen anything wrong with any locks or anything like that on the floor. And I told him it was because they were probably fake locking their unit. Fake locking your unit is when you keep the latch open and put a lock on it. Then you go on the inside of the unit. It was one of those doors that wasn't, you don't pull it down. It was just like a regular door. Then you go inside your unit, you shut the door, and then you bungee it closed from the inside. So it looks like it's locked from the outside when it's actually not. Unless you walk through those floors every day and you know what you're looking for, you can get away with that with somebody walking through or who only walks through every once in a while. So he walked through the next morning and he did find the fact that it was fake locked. And when he tried to open up the door, it was bungeed closed. So he ended up telling them that he evicted them, told them that they'd have to leave because they were living inside the unit. So it's not like people don't try. And it's not like, and people, the thing is, people think they're so smart. People think that they can beat the system. Now, you might be able to beat the system for a few days, but any longer than that, it's not going to happen because there's going to be too many red flags popping up. We even had a guy who had a special piece of furniture delivered. It was a set of 2 recliners that were connected. They were, that were connected with this little console in the middle. He had those delivered to his unit, and that's what he was sleeping on. He ended up getting evicted as well, and then we ended up throwing that piece of furniture out. Anything else out of the ordinary? I'm almost done. Anything else out of the ordinary, like extension cords, right? I've seen these videos online. They're like, hey, yeah, look, I've got this white extension cord on this white wall, and I put it along the molding along the top, and then I came down and went right in the door, and it's like, you can hardly even notice it. I'm sorry. No. Me being the custodian who walked through that facility every single day and knew every single inch of that place, I'm going to notice an extension cord going down inside the front of a storage unit. I'm sorry. The only way nobody's going to notice that if they're not doing walkthroughs. So, having food delivered. Yeah, people do that. Have food delivered. Instead of going out eating and coming back, they having food delivered? Are you kidding me? Then there are the people that hang out at their units for no apparent reason. they set up a chair, they're sitting there, they're gabbing, they invite their friends over, their friends stop by. It's like their own little apartment, their own little house. And they have their friends stop by and they're shooting the breeze. And all of a sudden you start seeing, iced coffee cups, other fast food packaging and stuff like that. And then that's when you realize they're most likely living there. They're living in that unit. And most of the time, it turns out that they are. Even if it's only part-time, but they are. Let's see. If the customer's vehicle is filled with their belongings, and they have a storage facility, then, a storage unit, then most likely they're homeless. Everything that they couldn't fit in their unit, they've got in their car. And especially during the hot months and the cold months, they're not going to be living in their car. They may be able to live out of their car when the weather's good, but when the weather is bad, it's going to be too much of a temptation, and they're going to try to enter the facility where it's heated and air conditioned and try to live there at least during the night. If not during the day for a few hours to get some sleep. And customers sometimes are just too friendly to staff, or they're the exact opposite and they try to avoid staff, one or the other. They try to be stealth completely. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to see you. They pay for their unit. They come in and out. They zip in and out without so much of a word to you most of the time. Then there's the opposite of the people who are nice to you. And I don't mean just nice. I mean, these are the people who will compliment you up and down and try to make you their buddy and call you boss man and all this other kinds of stuff, and they really think that they're putting something over on you. But the only thing it's doing for me is making me look even harder at what exactly they're doing when they're not face to face with me. So now, usually, as I said before, they'll slip up. They inevitably slip up. Everybody slips up. Everybody gets lazy. Something happens. They'll either start putting their personal items in the trash in the bathroom, like I said before, or they'll stop wiping out the sink and leave their whiskers in there or leave toothpaste in there. Something. They always get lazy. They always get lazy. So the longer they're there, the lazier they get because they don't think they need to cover up anymore. Or they're like, oh, why go through the effort of bringing this all the way to my unit when I could just dump it in the trash here? Then I won't have to bring trash there and then deal with it over there. Laziness. Another thing, too, is, as I mentioned before, there's no excuse for people living there. You can't say, oh, I didn't know they were living there. I suspected they were, but I didn't know. Because a lot of storage facilities have open tops to their units. Their units, in some states, their units can't even be closed on the top because not only is it a fire hazard, because the sprinklers won't be able to put the fire out if a fire starts in a particular unit, but also if it's climate controlled, you can't have a closed top to a unit, a solid closed top to a unit, because of the climate control, because it won't be able to get heated or air conditioned. There's no airflow through there. So it's more like, sort of like a really, it's not chicken wire, but it's sort of like that. It's what homesteaders and ranchers put up. It's not like 4-inch square. They're smaller than that. I think it's like 2-inch square fencing, metal fencing that goes along the tops of all the units. So you can take a ladder, climb up the ladder, look in the unit, and check for signs that somebody's living there. You can see if somebody's living there. At least you can suspect that somebody's living there with what you see. If they've got furniture set up, they got a mattress on the floor, they've got a clothesline up with clothes hanging off of it. These are all signs that something's going on, and fast food packaging in there. The real reason to find out if somebody's living in a storage unit is liability. Liability is the biggest thing. If somebody's living in that storage facility, in that storage unit, and you don't take care of the issue, and there's a fire, you're going to get sued. If there's an injury on site, you're going to get sued. Because if they're living there during the night, all they have to say, if they're walking to the bathroom and they slip and fall in the bathroom and injure themselves, all they have to say is, "Hey, I was just visiting my unit, and I slipped and fell on water in the bathroom." So the biggest issue is the liability issue. So this is why I say, with all these red flags that you can see, this is why I say it's impossible for me to I can't fathom the fact that people can live inside a building, in their storage facility, the storage unit, in their storage unit, stealth. There's no way. There is no way. I walked through the facility every single day. I have spotted extension cords going into units. Spotted it right away. I have spotted units that weren't locked correctly and people were inside. I have spotted units where the door was down and there was somebody sleeping inside the unit on a bed. I've gone through it all. I've seen it. I haven't seen it all. Thankfully, I haven't seen it all. I don't want to see it all, but I have seen that. So I know that people will do whatever they can to live in a storage facility if they can. They'll do whatever they can to circumvent all the issues where it would set up a red flag. But if you have conscientious employees working for the company, they keep their eyes and ears open. They don't have this, "I don't care, whatever, I'm getting paid minimum wage, so minimum wage, minimum work." You have to have an employee that puts us all into that position, who is conscientious, who goes by the book, who is conscious of what's going on around them. You just can't walk in there and walk through your whole work life with blinders on. So if you've got somebody who's walking around that facility to make sure everything's locked up tight, all the units are locked correctly, you don't have people hanging around, you don't have people hanging around outside the building, the bathrooms aren't being used for anything other than to go to the restroom and wash up and leave, then you're most likely not going to have people living there. Or you're going to be able to catch them during that first week that they're there. Storage facilities should be quiet. There should be nobody there unless they're taking inventory of what they have, unless they're moving in, unless they're moving out, unless they're just like grabbing something, some seasonal item or whatever. So it should be pretty quiet there the whole rest of the time. Nothing else should be happening. If there's somebody hanging around, if there are doors that are shut and with people in them, there's an issue. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is this. When you see a video online of somebody who says they're living stealth, they're probably not. It's probably either a lie. The management is probably knows about it and is complicit with it because they don't want to be throwing people out. It's income. They've got numbers that they need to produce every month. These storage facility managers, they have to produce, especially if you're working for like a chain, like a bigger chain, a national or international company. You've got to produce numbers every month. So these people may be living there, but you know what? They're paying their rent every month. And that's what counts. They're not delinquent. That's good news. If they were delinquent, then it'd be a different issue. But if they're making their monthly payment every month to stay there, then I'm sure there are companies out there who are willing to turn a blind eye to the fact that they're living there. because they're giving them good numbers that they can report to corporate. Then there are the ones who are completely unaware that anybody's living there because they take no ownership of the business that they're running. So that's the end of this video. I hope that you found it informative. If you have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below. I hope that you subscribe to my channel. I have, as you can see, an eclectic array of videos dealing from Christian issues to things like this, to unboxing, and to other things. So I hope you subscribe, that you hit the notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video. And I hope that you give me a thumbs up as well. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. I'm not going to give you a rundown of all the different self-storage facilities there are out there. I'm not even going to give you a top 10 reasons to choose Okay. I'm not going to have a rundown list on the 10 reasons, but don't just click off yet, because I'm not going to give you the 10 best reasons. Oh, best reasons, it's not reasons. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me again today. Today we're going to be discussing, I said today twice. Okay. Get serious. Get serious. Come on. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again today. We're going to be talking about self-storage. Now don't just click off just yet. I debated whether or not to make this video because I didn't want to give people the opportunity to know what we know in order to circumvent us figuring out circumvent, is that the word I want to use? To circumvent our